You've not tried to say, Charles, you've said it. You physically, literally said it. Hello and welcome to Talk Shop. My name's Colin Stone, I'm from Pink Elephant Communications, and in this series we look at speeches, at interviews and at presentations from the world's big names to see what they're doing well and what they can still improve. And today, for the very first time in this series, we have the British monarch, King Charles, giving a speech at COP28 in the United Arab Emirates. Let's see what we have.
We are seeing alarming tipping points being reached. I've spent a large proportion of my life trying to warn of the existential threats facing us over global warming.
I'm stopping it here because the King has used a word that we encourage people all over the world to stop using, and it's the word trying, or try. Because socially, when we use that word, we know what it means. For example, if I get a text today that says, Colin, I'll try and be at yours for 7, I know actually they're going to arrive at 7:30. Or, Colin, I'll try and call you today. I'm not getting that phone call because we use the word try or trying as a way of caveating this might not actually happen. So why I'm highlighting this in this particular setting is I've been trying to warn the world about the dangers of global warming. You've been trying. You can see it instantly implies, doesn't sound like you've been doing a good job of it. So what you can do instead is you can take the word out entirely, and now the sentence is instantly stronger. For years, I've been warning about the dangers of this changing climate. You see, instantly it's better. Or you can use a different word, substitute something about your attitude. I've been committed to warning the world about A, B, and C, or I've been absolutely determined to show that this is the way in which we need to protect our planet. So you've got alternatives here. Ultimately, the word try, save it for rugby.
All these decades later, and despite all the attention, there is 30% more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now than there was back then, and almost 40% more methane.
Percentages are their own form of communication, numbers generally, because audiences can struggle with them, and I include myself in that. I could do English in school, but I sucked at maths. And so when the King is saying, this is 30% higher, it's forcing the audience to do some mental calculations, and for many people in the audience, they're at a loss. So what can you do? Well, you can give us a visual representation instead. For example, a company I worked with recently, we're talking about how in the last 12 months, 75.7% of airline tickets that had been sold in that part of the world had come through their software. And I thought, right, how much is that? So a visual way of saying that is for every 4 airline tickets sold, 3 of them have come through our software. Now that's something the audience can see, rather than just having to do the mental maths. So always look at your percentages, look at your numbers, and figure out, is there a more impactful or a more visual way we can demonstrate this?
The dangers are no longer distant risks. I have seen across the Commonwealth and beyond countless communities which are unable to withstand repeated shocks, whose lives and livelihoods are laid waste by climate change.
This is good stuff. I'm going to suggest, though, he can make this even stronger. So the King there has just talked about countless communities in the Commonwealth and beyond whose lives and livelihoods are beyond repair. That is without an image. It's vague, it's abstract. We're talking about a community somewhere in the world. And so if he wants to make this even more impactful, he needs to go somewhere. He needs to pick one of them. So for example, he could take us to the Dominican Republic and villages there which have been decimated. Families in Nigeria who have had to leave their homes for A, B, and C. And so as soon as he says that now, we actually can see a geographical map in our minds. People in the audience who have been there, who are from there, who can nod and say, yeah, this is happening. The problem is when you become vague or abstract, the mind of the audience is also blank. We're talking about generic communities here. So if he's more specific, there's more impact.
Surely, real action is required to stem the growing toll of its most vulnerable victims. Repeated cyclones batter vulnerable island nations like Vanuatu and Dominica. India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan have been experiencing unprecedented floods.
That's what I'm talking about. Now he's actually mentioned specific places. Now it's real.
This past summer, in common with Spain, Greece, the United States, and many other countries, Canada experienced its most severe wildfire season on record, with 18.5 million hectares of land burned, causing terrible loss of life and property, and of course, releasing enormous amounts of greenhouse gases that contribute to death.
Yeah, so this is exactly the point I was making, which is when you're specific, when you give real examples, now it becomes real. So you can see the difference. When he talked about countless communities in the Commonwealth and beyond, now he's talking about Canada had its worst wildfire season on record. He's talked about all those other countries as well. The difference is chalk and cheese, it's night and day.
To which climate scientists have been alerting us for decades. As I've tried to say on many occasions...
You've not tried to say, Charles, you've said it. You physically, literally said it.
Unless we rapidly repair and restore nature's unique economy based on harmony and balance, which is our ultimate sustainer, our own economy and survivability will be imperiled.
I'm stopping it here because that's the quote that a lot of media outlets took on the reporting of the King's speech here, which was, our survivability will be imperiled. It's difficult enough to say, let alone write, and that's my issue with it. It's too complex, too complicated for that to be carried out of the room, into the media, and across the world. Someone like my mother-in-law would really struggle to explain what that even means. And that's the test, which is, could a child be listening to your speech, listening to your presentation, and understand it? For example, my 7-year-old nephew, Rory, could he have listened to the King saying our survivability will be imperiled and know what on earth he means? No. And so if the King could simplify that and make that, as we describe it, the kind of language you'd use in a pub, that's the language you're looking for, because then it's memorable and, importantly, it's simple. People can take it away and think, wow, our lives are in real danger, the planet's in serious danger. But a word like imperiled, it's giving me a challenge, let alone an audience where English is their second, third, fourth, maybe even a fifth language, as well as the wider audience watching this on the TV.
Records are now being broken so often that we are perhaps becoming immune to what they are really telling us.
Again, there's a word in here which is sowing a seed of doubt that I want to highlight. Perhaps these records are being broken so often, perhaps we're becoming immune to it. If you really wanted to make a strong stance here, take the word out. And now it becomes, we're seeing these records being broken so often, we're becoming immune to the real dangers they're presenting. Whatever he said afterwards. So again, it's the weak word, it's the perhaps, which sows that seed of doubt and says, well, maybe you're immune, maybe you're not. He can make that stronger. And if he even wants to qualify it as, this is just my own opinion, he can then add, I believe we're becoming immune. So once again, it's a word out of place, but on a stage like this, with a speech like this, every word counts.
Future, we must work equally towards being nature positive. With what we are witnessing, our choice now is a starker and darker one. How dangerous are we actually prepared to make our world?
So a line like that is far better. How dangerous are we prepared to make our world? It passes the child test, it's memorable, it's simple. It's the kind of line you would take away from the speech and think, yeah, it's a good point.
How can our multilateral organizations, which were established at a different time for different challenges, be strengthened for the crisis we face? How can we bring together our public, private, philanthropic, and NGO sectors ever more effectively so that they all play their part in delivering climate action, each complementing the unique strengths of the others?
This is highlighting the challenge with asking a question of the audience, particularly if that question is then being translated for some of the audience members. It was a very long question. If you really want people to remember something you've asked of them, the question has got to be short, it's got to be simple. That question had several commas, hyphens, essentially sub-clauses between all of it. So it's got to be simple for people to actually act on it,
which will help each sector of our global economy onto practical pathways to a zero-carbon, nature-positive future. And, ladies and gentlemen, fifthly, how can we...
Evidence that even the British monarch is guilty of chunking. Chunking is when you take several words and you run them all together so it sounds like a word, and he did it right there, which was, and, ladies and gentlemen, fifthly, because in his own head, he's thinking, oh gosh, this is a fifth point I'm making. Let's just quickly get to the fifthly. And so the, ladies and gentlemen, which he enunciated very nicely at the very start of the speech, has become a chunk. So people do it all over the world. He's just done it there. And of course, the only solution is to take your time and to enunciate every word clearly. So even if it is his fifth point or his fifth question he's leaving with delegates, it still needs to be said. And ladies and gentlemen, fifthly, here's the point. So you can still do that even if you feel like, all right, I've been going on a while.
As part of this grand and sacred system, harmony with nature must be maintained. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth.
It's a slightly unusual end in that he says his last line and then he's out of there. Usually, typically, people end speeches with, thank you. So, unsure why maybe for impact, he decided, that's my last line, and then I'm out of there. So, one to consider, we'd always encourage a thank you, even just as a signal to the audience to say, I'm finished. It's a very interesting speech. And I separate it into delivery and content. The delivery is excellent. As you'd expect from someone in the royal family who's been doing this, frankly, his whole life. It's deliberate with the pace, he's emphasizing the correct words, and he's really working hard on that balance between his script and the eye contact. So the delivery is very strong. What I believe needs work is the content. Two things. Number one, it's too complex, and I appreciate this is a weighty topic, but for people to actually leave that room remembering what he's asked them to do, and even for us at home who are watching this speech, we want to see what this language is all about, rather than leaving us with words like imperiled. You can make that simpler without dumbing it down. And the second point on the content is those weak words. Trying, perhaps, could. We could do this. And even those single words, they're really sowing seeds of doubt in the audience to think, well, is this really that important? Guess we'll find out. I trust you've enjoyed this edition of Talk Shop as much as I have, and if you want to work on your own communication skills, you can do. Head to the Pink Elephant Academy and use the discount code TALKSHOP for 30% off all of our e-learning courses. Everything from working with the media, writing for impact, and even presenting a speech just like this. Until next time, smile and speak slowly.